Hello, brothers and sisters. I wanted to talk about a topic that is a little taboo, but I really think it's worth discussing, and that is marijuana and Christianity. So, buckle in. And first off, I would like to say that it really depends on the Bible you go by, what translation, what exactly you have defined as pharmakia. The big Bible verse I'm speaking about is Galatians 5:20. And it's interesting. It really is. A lot of people have it translated as sorcery, witchcraft, fostering idolatry. And I think that's really interesting, fostering idolatry. And that's something I do want to focus on because I don't think people have a broad enough category in their mind of what exactly idolatry is. And idolatry is anything from constantly not putting down your phone. Your phone is the center of everything. Your TV is the center of everything. Your vehicle is the center of everything. You're putting accessories that are very expensive on it because you just love your car so much. Buying a very expensive wardrobe because that's what you crave to have. Idolatry comes in many different forms. And so I think we need to keep that in mind stepping forward. And the big thing with pharmakia is it's generally thought of as something that just you're not sober minded. Uh, and that can be the case with marijuana. There are people that just they can't deal with that. And you have to balance these things out with God and find where you need to be with it. Now, I'm choosing marijuana because other drugs such as heroin, crack, cocaine, clearly these are things that are not going to keep you sober minded. You can't be a drunk. These are things God is he opposes. He doesn't like. But what I want to discuss are more the facts along the basis of marijuana. Now, marijuana has had a very long history and has been, even back in the 50s and 60s, people considered if you actually partook in marijuana that you would go crazy. I had even I'd even seen books and things that were written that you could become a rapist. I mean, there were lots of things put on marijuana, and that was just kind of the smear campaign for the reasons behind it, and the reasons that didn't want it to be accepted. The main thing that I want to focus on is the fact that marijuana is not a hallucinogen. It's just not. If that's been your experience, then that's that wasn't just marijuana you ate or smoked or whatever. That's entirely something different. You're not going to hallucinate off marijuana. You're just not. That's not the way it works. Uh, Marijuana to me is not something that I'm pro recreational use for. I'm really not. I'm speaking on the terms of medicinal use. And keep in mind the things that are legal right now, the things like aspirin, acid reducer you can get over the counter, that's going to do more damage to your organs than marijuana is. You have pain specialists that are going to give you very strong narcotics because marijuana for medicinal use is not legal in many places in the United States. So they're risking you getting addicted to drugs and having problems with your organs for taking the drugs that you may not have had to take. And let me use a couple of examples here. I meet a lot of vets that have PTSD issues and that have gone and tried everything they could for years, over and over and over. and finally figured out that marijuana was something that did help them mentally and physically. It did help their pain. And that there's so many studies that prove that it does have a medicinal use, even though the government, I don't think it has yet acknowledged that it can be medicinally used. But you have a government in the United States that, they tend to look out for themselves before they do the average person. And states that don't have it legal for medicinal reasons, there's reasons why. You have government officials, governments that do get kickbacks from these huge pharmaceutical companies. That's an issue. You have people that, specifically police departments, that make a lot of money off search and seizures and fines and things like that. That helps them. It's cold hard economics at the end of the day. It's not necessarily because they're looking out for your best interest. The history of psychology and such with our government is not the best. We've done some very unsavory things, which does make it a bit hypocritical to say that marijuana is so detrimental. Like I said, anything can be an idol, and that is what you need to stay away from. An alcoholic needs to stay out of a bar. It's as simple as that. If you cannot use marijuana medicinally and do it responsibly and do it for the right reasons and do it safely, then don't do it. But when you have a child that has seizures, over 100 seizures a day, and takes THC drops, and all of a sudden they're only having a couple of seizures a day, that's a big deal. People with MS, people with cancer that are in agonizing pain going through chemo. I have seen it way too many times. Marijuana was the only thing that helped them, even a little bit. Not these strong painkillers that were making them loopy. I mean, if anything, they were way less sober-minded by the government guidelines they were following. And so you really have to look at it in a very logical way, that there are many drugs, hallucinogens, that falls into. You don't need to do peyote. You don't need to do these kinds of drugs. You don't need to do LSD. You don't really need to do mushrooms. You don't need to do these things. Those are hallucinogens. And I will say this, I'm not for recreational use. I think that it would be abused. It would become a huge idol, especially to younger people. And here's my issue with that. Your brain is underdeveloped until you're in your 20s. So we don't have long-term studies showing the use of using it when your brain is developing. And so it's not a good idea. I'm not on board with recreational use, but I do think it's worth discussing that we need to consider what is fact and what is just kind of made up by the powers that be, because that's what happens a lot of the times. So I'm very interested in your comments. This is an open discussion. Just be respectful. Don't be ugly about anything. But I'm really interested in what any of you have to say about it and how you feel about it. So, interesting topic. And with that, brothers and sisters,